Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started. Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. Hi, Ani, how are you?
Hi, Brian. I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing great. You ready for episode 93?
I am ready. 93.
Yeah, we're talking about how coaches can differentiate themselves in a crowded market. And we're also going to be talking about the AI coaching situation.
Waiting to see what word you were going to use. I think situation is very fitting.
Apropos. So, there's some stats out there, right? That if you just go looking around a little bit, multiple sites will tell us that there are about 110,000 coaching professionals worldwide.
Billions and billions.
About four. I think it was, don't quote me exactly on this, but I think it was around 40 in the 40,000s or in US alone.
Is that ICF coaches or is that all the coaches?
I just saw coaching professionals. So I'm not sure that it's all ICF. I don't think so.
Did you get that?
Found it off of multiple sites.
Oh, okay. Because that number seems a little low to me. But I mean, I don't know. And I'm bad with numbers.
Yeah, so we would just be guessing. So I'm just going with the numbers.
The coaching profession, trying to remember the slide in one of my talks about how fast the coaching profession is growing. And I'm not going to say a number because I would be misremembering.
Yeah. Well,
but it's the growth of the coaching profession is not stopped.
No,
it's not stopping.
It has accelerated. I mean, so one of the stats I saw that since 2022, or the time frame between 2019 and 2022, the number of people who are being certified as coaches has grown 54%.
Yeah.
So it's accelerating and it's growing. So I don't know how many the thousands or tens of thousands of coaches are trained each year then, according to that.
Which I love, by the way, but I'm a major fan, as we say at the Somatic Coaching Academy, of not making more coaches, but giving more people coaching skills to use, because I think it's like coaching skills are the best skills for all human beings to have. So on one hand, that makes me really happy. On the other hand, for people who are trying to make their living as coaches, the market just keeps getting more crowded.
Right. Yeah. And so the risk that we run as coaching professionals are kind of twofold. Number one, the more coaches that get flooded kind of into the market, number one. And then number two, the AI situation, which we're going to talk about, will lead towards what we call kind of a commoditization of coaching. In other words, coaching will become a commodity, no longer an expert service.
Right.
And then we become, then coaches end up competing, not directly with one another, they're really competing with the market on price, rather than outcome results that they create and those sorts of things. And that happens as more professionals flood into the market. So that's really kind of what we're talking about today as being a potential problem. If you are a coaching professional, how are you going to differentiate yourself in a crowded marketplace, and especially with the AI issue that's going on?
Right. Over the course of like the next 10 years, right? Yeah. How are you going to do that? And it's wild, right? Because there's a lot of people who are leaving their day jobs and deciding, you know what, I'm going to be a coach. So there's people who have no training, and then there's people who have all the way up the continuum to people who have tons of training, and people who are coaches who have lots of training and have PhDs, and there's all kinds of education, in the mix of all of this. So yeah, it's a really wild industry, and it's still fairly new. So it's still in its teenagerhood.
Yeah. And I just want to point out that just because you have more training doesn't necessarily in itself become a differentiator.
Nope.
Right. So because the market decides what differentiates you, and I can take a cue this from the physical therapy profession.
Yeah.
So when I
Gosh.
was
Yeah.
like I graduated like so long ago so long ago as a PT that yeah, I just have a bachelor's degree in physical therapy. And I was
Right.
one of the very last classes where a master's degree was not instituted nationally.
Yeah.
And now it's a
Doctors.
DPT
Yeah.
that you have to graduate with. And the interesting thing was when you get out into the working world, the DPT, you don't make any more money than the people who've been in the system working as
Nope.
a bachelor's degree because the insurance doesn't care.
No.
The people who are paying for the services, it's commoditized,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
they're only paying you a certain amount of money for 15-minute increments of neuromuscular education, therapeutic exercise, manual services, and they don't care who's providing it because you're providing a service for that 15-minute block and it's a rated payment from the insurance companies. So that's what I mean by being commoditized. So you could be the highest trained PT, you're still only going to get paid what the insurance company tells you that you're going to get paid.
So you're talking about education. Let's talk about you could be fantastic, by the way.
Yes, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So on one hand, both of us have been through all of this, by the way, right? Like between all the education that we
Mm-hmm.
have kind of thing and but we're so good at what we do. So that can be another thing that happens. You could be the best ever. You're still getting paid the same rate.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't matter how great you are.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And it wasn't until, so in my case, and I think your case too, it wasn't until I left the third party payer system or the
Exactly.
insurance payer system that
Yep.
I was truly able to differentiate myself.
Exactly. Me too.
And that was a
Yes.
really important thing.
100%.
And when I was even leaving my PT practice, and patients were telling me, they're saying, you're crazy. Not patients, actually, people around me. My patients
Right.
were actually really happy,
Yeah, yeah.
which I knew, which I saw was a
Is a
fluke.
sign.
But other people around me were saying, you're crazy. How are you going to be any different than coming to the hospital where it's cheaper for the patient? But
100%.
it wasn't cheaper for the patient. And when I
Right.
did the math and presented it to the patient, they are actually saving time and money by paying what looked like more out of pocket each week because of the way, and I wasn't even each week anymore.
Right.
It was, anyway, I could talk all about that, but I was able
It's
to differentiate myself in the marketplace, which allowed us to be successful with our business.
so one nugget I think that you just said that's really important is don't listen to all the people who are around you who have opinions about you and what you're trying to do, but have not walked in those shoes.
Right.
Because they do not know the amount of people that we've heard our students have around them who say you can't leave. Not all the people who work with us are physical therapists, by the way, but we have a number of people who have were physical and occupational therapists who have left the system and they have people around them going, you can't do that. Well, guess what? Watch me. Because
Right.
you said the math, it looks like you'd be crazy. No one's going to pay you. Of course they are, but you're leaving this commoditized system and you do differentiate yourself by going and working in your own
Mhm.
practice. And honestly, Brian, as we're talking this out, I think that this is one of the reasons why we understand what's going to happen in the coaching industry with a different perspective than some others because we've been through it already in the therapeutic space.
Yeah. Hmm.
So we do have a perspective on this that I think, you know, I think it's wise to look at other industries and look at other professions and stuff and look at history to see because history repeats itself
Hmm.
with certain patterns, right? Patterns
Yep.
happen. Yeah, so I think the therapeutic space is actually a really good place to look at and see what were the patterns there and the trajectory because the professions are much older
Yeah,
than the coaching
exactly, exactly.
professions.
So, Ani,
Yeah,
would you like to share, or would you please share
sure.
your AI situation story that kind of really brought it up for us, why we needed to talk about this today?
Yeah, I so we were having some meetings with colleagues who were talking about this commoditization of coaching and AI. And I am always really super skeptical right off the bat when it comes to talking about any kind of technology. I mean, I was the person who didn't want to get a flip phone. I was the person who didn't want to get an iPhone. Whatever new technology is coming out, I want nothing to do with it,
Yeah.
right? So, we were having this conversation with colleagues about the commoditization of coaching, and especially as it relates to the AI industry and what's coming down the pike for the AI industry. And holy cow, like coming down the pike for how AI is going to be integrated into our lives is pretty incredible. Also, like makes perfect sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, I use a an app that is kind of like ChatGPT style, and it has this little robots that I can ask questions to. So I went to my robots and I wanted to see what they had to say. And so I felt like I was going a little undercover, Brian. So I had my sunglasses on. No, not really. And I wanted to see if I wanted AI to coach me, what would happen. So I came up with a situation. I asked the AI, what it thought, and then I got a really good idea. I thought, what if I use a certain coaching methodology that I'm familiar with, and because you can ask
Yeah.
the AI to do things like in a certain voice or like as you can ask for advice as a certain person. Like I could say to the AI, tell me what Brian Trzaskos would say about this situation.
Oh, that's cool. I'm
I
sure you do that a lot.
I haven't done that yet. Think maybe I'll try later. Okay, so I,
AI might be a better version of me than me.
well, I read something interesting about that too, but let's not get off the topic. Okay, so I put in this certain coaching methodology that I'm very familiar with, and I said, coach me like a this kind of coach. And I was shocked actually that the AI came right back with the exact methodology, exactly like they would do, like a coach would do it. And I just like open jaw, kind of like, what just happened? And so
Like AI could
could
potentially
coach me.
replace a
Yes.
coach that's
Yeah.
certified in this particular methodology.
Yeah, it knew the methodology enough somehow to actually start the conversation, the coaching conversation, just like this kind of coach. It was wild. So then I thought to myself, oh, I wonder what it would do about SBMC. So I put in coach me like an SBMC coach.
Sensation-based motivation coach, right?
Correct, which is our methodology, and it's trademarked, by the
Yeah.
way. And so the bots came back and asked me a question, and it was not based on our methodology. And I said something like, "What do you think SBMC means?" And it said, "What did it say? Sensation." Maybe it said sensation based, and then centering. I don't even remember. It was not
Mm.
sensation based motivation coaching. They had some other words associated with that. And here's what I said to the AI.
Mm.
I said, "Where did you get that from?" And they said something, and I said, "Did you make that up?" And they said, "Yes." And I educated them
Yeah.
for a second. I don't know if that made any difference. And I said, actually, SPMC is a proprietary method used by the Somatic Coaching Academy. It's a trademark process.
Mm.
So, like, you shouldn't just make stuff up, by the way,
Yeah.
because that's a trademark process.
Did AI feel bad that it made it up?
No,
Okay.
because AI doesn't feel bad, which
Okay.
I think we're going to talk about a little bit
Interesting. Okay.
later.
So let's say.
It validated me, and it said things like, "You're right, Ani," which of course I love to
Make you feel
hear.
great.
I
Yeah.
love to hear that.
So the AI kind of knows how to manipulate you.
Well, the AI is trained to validate,
Yeah, right.
right? So, yeah. So anyway, it was the situation was really interesting because on one hand, I was baffled by the fact that it could coach me like this coaching methodology that I kind of know how it goes, and the other hand, it didn't even know what SBMC was, but it told me it didn't tell me
Made up
it
something.
made up something, didn't even tell me it was made up. That's the second time actually that's happened to me because I caught something else where I was asking it some questions and it just was making
Stuff
stuff
up.
up,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. But also, even if it did was able to kind of enter into that conversation as an SBMC coach, it can't follow through with it because there's things within the context of being a sensation-based motivation coach that an AI can't do.
Mhm, right.
So it wouldn't have gotten very far because there's just things that it can't do because it's a bot, it's not a human being.
Right. So I think first of all, scary, like really scary that so many people are talking to their AI and AI could just be making up the answers.
Yeah.
And unless you call AI out on that, they won't actively admit that they just made something up. There's no like little asterisk saying, by the way, this is made up.
100%. They don't go, well, I could be making this up. They just say it like it's
Like it's fact.
fact.
Yeah. So there we go. So let's just be frightened about that
Yeah.
because how many humans right now are checking into their AI, their ChatGPT, their Claude, their whatever,
Some people aren't even using Google. They're just using
their AI,
GPT
right, to find
or
things.
things,
Right.
yeah,
So who
to,
knows what's being made up? So just red alert people on
for
that.
that.
Okay. So we got that. And so what we're saying essentially, Ani, is that there's more coaches being flooded into the market just from training. And AI is also here.
Yeah.
And so will it be that people are just like for the first coaching methodology that you talked about, if it really is that accurate, why would you even hire a coach? Why wouldn't you just go to AI and ask to be coached the way that that particular coach would coach you? Because that's
Well, yeah. So people could do
free.
that. Also, companies love technology.
Companies, yeah, exactly. So
Companies
if you're an internal coach,
love to, well, not even that, like even an external consultant
yep,
and coach, right? Internal coaches, external coaches. I can see all the companies who have all of these apps that they freaking love having these coaching apps, and they're going to want people to get coached on the coaching apps,
right.
right? Unless there's solid evidence that you should not be doing that. But what I and I'm, I have no crystal ball, but what I could see happening is that there's like these general coaching apps that companies use as the rule, and then there are some extra coaches that you can use sometimes or under specific circumstances or things like that. But I've seen this happen in the wellness industry. Again, going back to
Hmm.
industries that are more well
Yeah.
developed. At first, people are going into companies and doing all the wellness stuff. Now, I've talked to so many people who are in companies who say, well, the wellness app, the wellness app. And I'm like, oh my God, are you talking to a wellness professional? They're talking to
Mindfulness too really has gone through that transformation, right?
100%.
It used to be
So
that
it's
you worked with mindfulness professionals, practitioners. Now there's all these mindfulness apps.
correct, correct. So you really do need to differentiate yourself if you're going to be competitive in and being able to really speak to the purpose of having a human when you're up against all of this technology too.
Yeah. So let's talk about differentiation because 100,000 coaches worldwide, let's say around 40,000 or so in the US, it probably 10,000. The number I saw was just 10,000 coaches every year being trained coming out. So there's like more coaches are coming into the system every year.
Right.
But the research we looked at is likely because not a lot of hard data on this. We had to extrapolate some data from it. Is like likely less than 5%, less than 4% of coaching professionals are being trained in somatic coaching.
We'll get this statistic. I might get the numbers slightly off, and I meant to look it up and I didn't. Right now, the somatic therapeutic space,
Mm,
oh, in 2023, in
yeah.
2023, the somatic therapeutic space was earning $3.3 billion a year, and they're projecting by 2033 that the somatic therapeutic space is going to be bringing in $13.3 billion dollars
So
a
5x
year.
growth
The I
in
mean
10
the
years.
chart that I was looking at was like little teeny growth up into
Yep.
2023, and then it's just a big huge spike.
Mm.
And I'm putting somatic coaching into that somatic therapeutic chart real quick because I guarantee you people are not delineating those things out. So part of the interesting thing actually is that space is on a massive growth trajectory. And of course, one of the reasons I think that is, well, I think there's a lot of different reasons for it. But one of the reasons is that, more people are talking about it, more people are interested, and it's kind of like the new organic, like more
Mhm.
people are doing it, right? But it is a human skill. You cannot AI the human skills of watching a person's body, right? Listening with your eyes. You can listen to the words somebody says on an AI, but you can't watch the body. And you can't from there do any of the stuff that you do when you watch somebody's body and you work in the body. The AI bots cannot do that. And I think that's part of why that huge trajectory is going up.
Mm.
You know, the body skills are going to be needed more than ever.
Yeah, it's also interesting too. I think in some ways, Ani, there is a reflexive actualization, let's say, of the more disembodied we seem to be becoming with technology. There's also parts of ourselves that realize that our stress is going up, anxiety is going up, mental health disorders are going up, right? All these things. And so people are seeking out more somatic methodologies because they realize or their life just isn't where they want it to be, even though they have all this technology to support what should be a really easy and wonderful life because technology is doing it's just actually making us more disembodied, more disconnected, more disintegrated.
Which means that the somatic practitioners are needed more than ever again.
So let's just look at this trajectory for a second. 10,000 coaches trained a year in basic intellectual cognitive kind of methodologies. The somatic therapeutic space is going to have a 5x growth in demand in the next 10 years. Okay, so we're going from 3 billion to 13 billion. I think you said something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So 5x growth essentially in that amount of time. 4 to 5x. And only 2 to 3% of, let's say, maybe less than 5%. Let's be generous. Let's say 5% of coaching professionals a year are trained in somatic stuff. Right. So that's a differentiator right there. Yeah. That is the differentiator. Yeah. In terms that you're looking for being a coaching professional is to have those somatic skills, tools, practices that you can bring that disallows really AI from being effective. So you've taken AI out of the competitive market.
And commoditization.
Yeah. And you've also taken yourself out of commoditization because that's not when someone says, well, a company says, well, we pay, $60 an hour for coaching, take it or leave it. You can say, well, I don't do coaching. Like I don't do the coaching like the way everyone else is trained. This is the kind of coaching we do. We're not a commoditized profession.
Yeah, you can start demanding, you can demand your prices based on the results that you can get with your clients, like you kind of can now, but if the commoditization happens, you won't be able to do that anymore. But you will still be able to do it with the somatic.
So you can do results-oriented pricing as a somatic coaching professional, not commoditized pricing as a standard kind of coaching professional. Right.
Yeah, I'm just like
the way when I say standard, I mean, it's the way everyone else is trained.
Correct.
Right. So it's a specialty. That's what you're differentiating yourself as a specialty sort of thing. So let's just talk for a moment, Ani, about somatic coaching for a second. Yeah. Because we are just at a conference recently and people are asking us about, what is somatic coaching? I'd never heard about it before. And it's kind of funny, I have a recurring challenge in my own life. I kind of live in a bubble. And I have this idea that everybody must know about somatic coaching stuff because I live it 24 hours a day. So I'm really surprised when I go out there in the world to a coaching conference and people say, I've never heard of somatic coaching before, which basically tells you still about that differentiation factor.
Oh, sure.
So that just alone tells you. So we had a lot of interest in questions around it. And one of the, and even some people who said, well, I've heard of somatic coaching before, but I don't know much about it. Can you tell me about it? And I said, well, the first thing I want to tell people is that all somatic coaching is not the same. It's not the same.
Yes, yes. So some of the conversations I was having where people were saying, well, I know what somatic coaching was, but they were talking about somatic therapeutics. They didn't really understand. So yes, what were you going to say?
Yeah, well,
it's a really important conversation to be having right now and to talk about the differences in somatic coaching because just somatic coaching, there's a ton of variation.
Yeah. And so the example that I used at this conference was I would tell people if I introduced myself to you and I said that I'm a surgeon, then what would your next question be?
What kind?
What kind of surgeon? Well, that's the same thing it is for somatic coaching. So somatic coaching, it's like surgery in terms of that there's many different methods, styles, ways to go about doing somatic coaching. And we do a specific type of somatic coaching. So remember, somatic just means body oriented. So when someone's doing somatic coaching, they're doing something that's oriented to the body. So when I talk to other somatic coaching training professionals, right? We're all doing different stuff.
Yes.
We're all doing different things. It's all body related. It's all body oriented. And
Right.
not all of it is totally different.
Right.
If anything, the most common stuff that every somatic coach training program does are the kind of those somatic practices,
The nervous
right?
system
The nervous
regulation.
system regulation stuff. That's like kind of the foundation for most, if not all, practices. And if you're looking at a somatic coach training program that does not do nervous system regulation as the very first thing, then be wary.
You
Like,
do you, but we wouldn't.
beware. But after that, it changes.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone's doing the nervous system regulation stuff, but then what people get taught after that is different.
Right.
And so we teach a pretty methodized somatic coaching process and processes around what we call sensation-based motivation coaching.
Right.
And the reason we do that, and I had this little exchange with someone, and I said, okay, so what kind of surgeon are you? Or I'm a surgeon. What kind of surgeon are you? And I said, I'm this kind of surgeon. From a coach, we do sensation-based motivation coaching. And I say, if you talk to somebody, if you're looking at hiring someone who does somatic coaching, or if you're looking at entering into a training program of somatic coaching, if someone tells you that they do intuitive somatic coaching, I mean, red alerts, red alerts, red alerts, because it's almost like well, what kind of surgeon are you? Well, I'm an intuitive surgeon. I don't know where I'm going to cut.
Just go
I just
in,
go in and
see what my
start kind
intuition
of, once
tells
my
me.
intuition tells me where to cut, I'm just going to start cutting around.
Wouldn't do
And
that.
wouldn't do that, right? I want to know, I'm a cardiovascular surgeon. This is the entry point I take in. This is the angle I go in at. This is what I'm going to do. Like when you talk to a surgeon, you want to know exactly what they're going to do. You don't want them going in there and like just trying things out sort of thing.
To that point, we tell our students this, and I think it's really important. If you're, I think, one of these things about niching into and differentiating yourself with somatic coaching is you can't just leave it there. You can't just say, I'm a somatic coach. You've got to continue on with an example so people understand, because people are going to categorize you however they have
Right.
experiences
Yeah.
in their minds, not your mind, their mind, and we have no control over what experiences somebody else has had, and we basically have no idea what kind of experiences people have had. So if we just go, well, I'm a somatic coach, then they're going to find some file folder in their brain
Yeah, right.
like, what does that maybe
Oh
mean?
yeah, my friend worked with a somatic coach and they had
Ex-
a terrible experience or something, or
exactly.
it didn't
Or
work, or
all about somatic coaching, but what they mean is they went to yoga class once in the 70s. Like, you have no idea.
yeah,
So
right.
you have to say, if you're going to say, I'm a somatic coach, you have to follow it with an
Mhm.
example of the kind of work that you do so you can give an example of that work and the results that people get. Otherwise, you are leaving way too much chance to
Yeah.
people filing through their own sorting system in their heads.
Yeah. I just want to come back and kind of finish that thought on the intuition for a moment, because it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like I'm
yeah.
down on intuition. What we like to teach our students to do is to, yes, tap into your intuition, but within the process that you're
Use the
learning. So
process.
use the process and then link your intuition up with the process. So in other words, with sensation-based motivation coaching, you're learning several different tools within the training. And so you can certainly use your intuition to decide which tools to use. Like that's a thing. But you're not just kind of trying things out and sampling. No, you know what you can do. You know what tools you have available to you, and you know how to use the tools.
And you keep bringing it back and grounding in the client's experience, because a lot of times with intuitive work, you're kind of like swimming out there in the wacky, wild wonders. And like the next thing you know, I hesitate in even calling them a coach, is leading the client through their own journey, the coach's journey, rather than really partnering with the client and keeping it client specific and leading the client and following the client's intuition. Because that's not coaching. Coaching is really partnering with your client so that they're leading the process and you're partnering with the client in that leading. And a lot of times when people say they're leading with their intuition, they're taking people on some kind of trip, but they're taking people down that path.
Right. Yeah. So when it comes to, again, somatic coaching, and back to your point about giving people an example, that's really important. And what I want to know when people say, oh, I do somatic coaching, I always ask them, well, what methodologies you're using?
Right.
Like when you are doing somatic coaching with people, what are your methods? Like, what are your standards? Like, what are you actually kind of doing with someone? And if someone can't describe to you the method that they're doing, when you're hiring somebody, if someone can't describe to you the method that they're doing, how they go about doing it, then again, I'd be wary of that because to me, whenever we're in someone's body, it's just like surgery, right? We're not cutting into their body, but we are energetically looking into their body, right? They are taking their own conscious awareness and they're directing it into their own soma, into their own soma. And we've talked a lot about this, that of course, traumas kind of live in the body or stored in the body this way. So anytime we start directing awareness into a soma, there's a chance, not always, right? Not always, thankfully, but there's a chance that some past issues could come up. And when we're using methodologies, we actually kind of have guardrails on the process to keep you safe and to keep the clients safe as well. That's why I always want to know, what are the methodologies?
That's another thing about differentiation, though, Brian. If you're not following a process, how can you say you're differentiating yourself in the market?
Right?
Because
Yeah.
people want to know that you're following a process that can get results with person A, B, C, and D. But if you're just following your intuition or you're not using a process, then who knows if you can get repeatable results?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's kind of think about how we're going to summarize this thing.
Yeah.
Like what we've talked about. A lot of coaches coming in, AI situation is running rampant, potentially learning how to coach and potentially even just getting better and better and better at that. So right now, the trajectory for the market is huge in somatics, and not many people are being trained in somatics right now. So that really for the next 10 years, it looks like there's like I don't think they call it a blue ocean, but like a pretty wide open space to be able to really grow and build a client base and get your practice solidified within the somatic coaching space and realm. And what we really lean into is sensation-based motivation coaching. And what we really lean into with our program is really a comprehensive coaching program. You know, again, I look around at a lot of other coaching programs, and everybody is serving a specific need in the marketplace, which I really appreciate. Some coaching programs are more kind of ad hoc. Some are kind of grab a little bit here and learn some, and other ones are completely immersive and longer term. And we really pride ourselves on having a very comprehensive training program, right? It's about a year long. You learn the somatic practices, you learn the cross mapping methodologies for both physical and emotional distress and challenges, and then you learn all of the somatic or sensation based motivation coaching skills that take those practices and cross mapping and put them into a coaching methodology and coaching framework. So, and it happens over the course of the year. There's lots of opportunity for colleague and peer connection, for peer practice, for mentorship. We have an in-person component. So we really spend a lot of time helping coaches not only learn the skills and tools, but actually taking them up for themselves and changing throughout the course of the program. And that's kind of how we differentiate ourselves within the training space of somatic coaching schools.
So if you're a coach listening to this, don't be like me and put your head in the sand. I think it's really important that we do think ahead and realize that these changes are coming. A lot of people are very excited about them. Technology growth just keeps happening faster and faster. So for you, it's tough, right? I mean, people are dealing with a lot of life coming at them right now. But if you're a coach, I really think you need to we encourage you to take some time and think for yourself, in 3 to 5 years, what is my plan that I'm putting in place now so that in 3 to 5 years, when coaching is being commoditized and when the apps are all over the place doing coaching, that I've thought ahead, because you have the capacity now to start putting things into place so that you are putting yourself ahead of the curve rather than below the tidal wave, you know?
Yeah.
But there's definitely things that you can put in place. And it may be doing things like studying with us. It might be something different, but I do highly encourage you to think ahead for yourself and make those decisions so that you can still do the work that you really love to do in the world and matter so much. We are not going to be losing the need for human skills and human connection, but we do need to think about the things that AI specifically can kind of take out at the knees in the marketplace, and the things that are going to still stay the same and then rise above in the need, factor.
So stay relevant in your meaning and in your purpose.
Yeah.
Rise above the rest of the crowd. Really do amazing work in the world.
Have confidence, because that's really important to keep putting ourselves out there with confidence as the world is changing so rapidly.
Yeah, in a much needed world. So thanks so much for joining us this week again on the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.